Cool, so the first thing in the manual is actually to do the shocks. I'm going to do one real time so you can see what I'm doing. The shocks are partly assembled already, so you're going to need to strip these bodies down. So take the bottom off, top off, and so on. But before we do that as well, I always find it good to open all the bags up, get some part bits together so you can actually clean what you're doing. I used to so just get into these bags a second. Seals. Open it all up. What all these plastic rings are, they're a series of seals. So when you've got the oil actually in the shock, it's going to hold the oil in place and stop it leaking for you. So we'll go to first as you're going to open up the parts. You can see the difference in the shims and the O-rings and so on. Just look through them all, familiarise yourself with where they're actually going. Cool. So first things first, like I say, it's always good practice to get the parts in the right order so you can see what you're doing. You've got your shim there. So bag A, part 1, onto the shim's going to drop over the screw head. There you go. So it only goes on one side, so straight away. So these are actually slightly smaller thread, and it's actually smoothed off, whereas this side is full thread, which is going to go into the rod end. So we're building onto the slightly smaller end to start off with. Shim's going on there. Then your cap, and topped off with your nylock nut. In this case, finding your. There you go. Last one's right. So just for reference, that's a 5mm box wrench that I'm using on that. Make sure that's nice and tight into the nylock, which it is. You can always just make sure you're getting it right. You don't want to damage the shock, so if you are using pliers on this one, use smooth ones where you can. And it's just a case of holding it in and tightening it up. There we go. So that's the first part built, nice and simple. Now we need the actual shock body. So this is what we started stripping down before. So make sure you take the lid off. You don't need that yet. Take the base off because you're going to have to assemble that separately in a minute. You can leave the spacer on. That's just to adjust the tension of the shock. And if you're anything like me, you can get running droop, so leave that nice and high, keeps it soft. This is going to drop straight down into the body of the shaft. There you go. Then we're going to flip it over. And this is where we can actually start to build the shaft up. So you can see we've got a ring at the top, sitting on top of that. I think that goes there. Yeah, so I'd say that ring's actually going to sit underneath the main cap. Or maybe not. Let's have a look. So, set this off. Oh no. Sure. So inside this, there's actually a small recess where you can put a rubber ring. And you can see there, that's now created a seal in there, and that's going to stop it moving as freely when you're adjusting your shocks, which I'm guessing will aid in the shock not changing tension when you're running the vehicle, which is good. So let me just get that back up a little bit on there. Yeah, it's much firmer now. You can see I'm just tightening that up, bringing it right up. Even though it's got the seal on there, it's just holding it in place a little bit tighter. Okay, now we're going to build the base. So we need to get the grease out. We've got the rubber rings, we've got the spacers, shock rings, then we've got the cap, and it's rubber ring, spacer, rubber ring, spacer. That should stop it leaking. So, the rubber rings are these, the spacers are these. Look the same in the video, but this one's much softer and this one's hard plastic. Nice and simple. So we need 2 of each of those. And what it's suggesting is that we actually put the grease I tend to use engineering grease, it does the job perfectly. Do need to stock up on that a little bit there. And it's saying to get that onto the rubber rings when you're building it, which will help anyway because it's going to hold it all together for you. So, just in the essence of keeping things clean, rubber rings into the grease, not too much, just enough to coat it. So rubber ring in there first. Followed by a spacer. Followed by another rubber ring going in the grease first. Finally followed by another spacer. And just move off any grease you left over. So you got that nice and flush now, and you'll see it actually sits perfectly flush with the base of the shock. And then it's just a case of putting the cap back on to hold all that in place for you. Okay, now flip it over, because this is where we insert the shaft, and now it's going to feel much smoother going in there now because it's got to pass through all that grease and that seal that you've just made at the bottom there. So that's nice and smooth now, which is nice, it's all good. And it's a case of checking the distance on the bottom. So development calipers on rule. Okay, so it's saying 3.25, that's when we actually put the base on there, so let's tighten that up first at the bottom. So what it's asking me to do is get one of these, and then get one of these. So you got your rod end and your ball joint, that needs to pop into there. See if these are going to do it. I might need to use some slightly bigger pliers. Yeah, let's use some bigger pliers, make it easier. Or what I've actually found in the past is it's sometimes easier to do this once it's on the rod. That works. A nice little clip there. So now you've got the loose ball joint, which is good. And then this is going to be attached to the bottom of the shaft, which is coming through here. Now what might be good practice here is grab yourself a small Allen key that fits through the hole, and then use the box wrench that you used to do the top up here, because technically that's going to allow you to turn it nice and easy straight onto the shaft. And I'm going to tighten it all the way to the base, because then I can check the actual distance, because you might not actually need to measure it if you're just going on the amount of thread they've cut for you. So it's saying that there should be 32.5, and it is exactly 32.5. There you go, that's just made your job a little bit easier. And effectively tighten it until you see no more thread, and that's a good one, nice and simple. Okay, so the next thing to do is to diaphragms needed, the lid, and the ring at the top. But what we're going to do at this stage is also put the oil in here. So the oil I'm going to be using, one side a second. Oh, sorry, it's just some old silicone shock oil. Dr. Liquid 500. So what you're going to do here, it can get messy, so sometimes it's good kind of practice to do, but hopefully that'll be okay. Get some oil in there. And you want to keep going so you can kind of see it filling up at the top here. Okay, so we get right to the top now. Before I fill it completely though, what I'm going to do is get rid of any air bubbles in there, and you do that by actually sliding the shaft up and down. And what you'll see is the oil actually goes down quite a bit once you've done that as well, because you remove the air out of there. And you just top it up once more, just a little bit, because you need room to put the diaphragm in as well, but ideally you want there to be no air in your shocks at all. There we go, nice. So top a little bit more at the top. Set the diaphragm on there. And place that on there, because what the next thing to do is actually put that onto there. There's a little bleed hole on the side of the cap here as well, which will help. But you can see that it's gone all together nicely. That's how the shock on. Feels nice and smooth. The next thing to do in all this, drop your spring on, get your retainer on the bottom, hold the spring compressed, clip that over the shaft, and it sits on top of the cap. And there's your shock. Now, each loop repeat, do it again. Thought I'd just cut in a little bit, a bit of real-time video for you again. Yeah, it's me. What I'm actually doing here is this is bag D now, and it's a front shaft assembly. But you don't very often get opportunity to build these types of shafts where it's a proper CV joint, a constant velocity joint. And what you're doing is you're having to put a very small kind of holder into the end of the shaft, and then you're sliding the pin through the kind of the output shaft, and then putting a spring over the top. But I thought I'd do this one in real time so you can see what I'm doing. I'm using engineering grease again. It's good to grease all the parts. These parts are small, so they might be a little bit difficult to see on the camera. But yeah, I'm just putting a dab of grease on there. The grease kind of helps as well, because it holds them in place a little bit, stops them falling out when you're building it. So get your grease on there. Slide that one in first, like so. Now, if you can't locate using the sides, drop the pin in to get it straight, like you saw me doing the time lapse a minute ago. And then it's just a case of putting this on, lining the holes up, and getting a bit of grease on the holding pin, and dropping that straight through both the hole in the output shaft and the centre pin on the drive shaft, like this. Now, when it comes to getting those springs on, there's a little knack to it. If you just pull the first ring down and then use the spring itself to actually get itself on there, so just run your finger around it, putting pressure on, and it will pull itself down onto the kind of recess on the output shaft. And what this is doing is that's creating a block over the steel pin, which is stopping it coming out when it's in use. And that's a CV joint, as opposed to a dog bone, which can pop out when you're driving. This also allows a greater angle of drive, which you don't get with drive shafts because of dog bones and cups, because they'll typically pop out. But yeah, there you go. Back to the time lapse.